Adele is going to be joining us live, and at the NASA Johnson Space Flight Center, she is a certified Mission Control Center flight controller and an astronaut instructor where she has supported over 90 spacewalks. She is part of the team to develop a lunar landing under the NASA's Artemis program, and she has been working in the field of physics for 19 years. Now, this training has led Adele to many unique experiences, researching the mind, nuclear physics, and team cognition. She's also a private pilot and scuba diver. We're excited to learn more about walking on the moon, spacesuits, the next mission to the moon, and of course, Adele, your inspiring career in STEM. We are so glad that you are able to join us live.
Hi, yeah, I'm ready to go with the presentation. If I can share the video screen. Let me
see. Perfect.
All right, so hi everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate being here today, and I'm hoping you'll find the presentation interesting. We're going to talk about some of the scientific challenges for spacewalking on the moon. And I know I was asked to give a little bit of a background first, so I'm going to go ahead and just tell you a little bit about me. First of all, whatever I say here today is just my opinion, doesn't represent NASA or any of the other companies I work with, and I just wanted to express that. Also, you may see some pictures of me in a spacesuit, but I'm not an astronaut. I haven't been in space, so just keep that in mind when we talk about questions at the end. So here's a picture of me. I'm about your guys' age. This was me on a boat in Lake Michigan where I was sailing with my family. We would go out several weeks during the year in the summers, and it was my first sense of exploration and science. It was really what piqued a lot of my interest. For me, it was exciting because we would look at the stars and astronomy, and my dad and my mom would talk about constellations and navigation. And I thought it was so cool that the stars were mathematical and you could use it for navigation, but was also really powerful, and there was this element of time. And so when I grew up, I decided to become a physicist. I went to college, both undergrad and graduate degrees in physics. And that led me to the job that I had in the future, which was to be an astronaut instructor and flight controller for extravehicular activities or spacewalks at NASA Johnson Space Flight Center. It was super exciting, and now I've actually moved on to a group in which I'm helping to support spacewalks, but for the moon. But how did I get there? What happened? Part of my background was a variety of things that I was interested in. I was a cross-country runner in high school, and I got a scholarship that allowed me to pay my way then in college to help pay for college, which was really exciting. So being part of a team was my family and my team was my first introduction to that kind of life, as far as working with others, which we do all the time with scientists and engineers at NASA. And then also I played the piano. There's a picture of me at space camp when I was 16. And then as I got into college, I continued to do experiments in physics and also with NASA. So this picture here is me closing up an experiment that was going to go on STS-104. And then here I'm doing a physics experiment with an accelerator. And so, you know, I think part of it is just being very diverse and going after what you really think is interesting. The advice I would have for anyone working at this point is just try lots of things, see what you like. You know, there's nothing wrong with trying something. You don't have to be the best at everything. But once you do find the things you like, and get as good as possible without ignoring your schoolwork, family, or friends. Those are foundational elements of growing up, and so you want to make sure you have those covered, but definitely practice at the things you can, learn all about them, and do the best that you're physically able to and mentally able to do with them. And don't let anyone tell you what you're interested in is not important. So in particular, for me, I was interested in a lot of different things, and I know there was a point in high school where certain people had said, look, if you want to be a physicist, you should really focus on these things and maybe stop doing running or cross country. And for me, that was so important as my kind of overall life and health. And so I would encourage you to really do all the different things that you're interested in, because it did come back to me for NASA. Two different hobbies I have. I'm a pilot and I'm also a scuba diver. Those were things that I know some of the other scientists that have talked this weekend talked about. They had to wait a little bit earlier to do that. For me, I had to save up money to be a scuba diver, and I started scuba diving at the end of being an undergrad. So I wasn't the best scuba diver in the world. It was something I did for fun. It was something I enjoyed. And it was something that I had hobbies in under my resume. And I had been looking for a job after graduate school at NASA. And I got a call one day from a group lead and EVA, and she said to me, look, we're looking for scientists and engineers. We get lots of applicants, but we're also looking for people who scuba dive. And that was a little surprising to me. And the reason is because for spacewalks, we train in this large pool called the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory. And she wanted people who were scuba divers so that they could go in as instructors and trainers and dive with the astronauts and give feedback. And so it was something that was in my hobbies, something that I never thought I would pull into my everyday job. But yet here it was, I was being offered a job because of my hobbies. So I would encourage you that if you're interested in something, if you feel like something's fun, go ahead and do it and keep working at it, because you never know when it's going to tie into potentially your career or just even being something that's fun that you like to do. So the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory is a huge pool. You can see the scuba diving equipment there in the bottom, and all the flags on the wall, of which, of course, there's one from Canada. So a little shout out to Canada there, exploring by the seat of your pants. But there's many, many different international partners that we work with. So it's not just different types of scientists and engineers, but also all over the world of people that we work with, which I really love about working at NASA. And, sorry, one more point I wanted to show was that, one of the benefits besides just being a scuba diver is also that I got to actually do some NBL runs, we call them, in a spacesuit. So that was really exciting for me. However, that might be a little overwhelming for you, or you might say, hey, I'm interested in NASA, but that's not necessarily something I want to do. That's okay, because if you're passionate about space exploration, there is all different types of jobs. You can be a chef. We need food to be optimized for the moon and Mars. We need video and art designers to be able to help us with some of the different types of videos and promotion rates, and even documentaries and history on what we're doing. We need reporters to share out to people in the world what we're doing. Of course, doctors, scientists, pilots, we'll always need pilots and engineers. So really, if there's anything you're interested in and you think, is there a job in human spaceflight that I can do with what I'm already interested in? There probably is. So don't just feel just because you're not in a STEM career, that's not the case. But STEM careers are really important for working in human spaceflight. And where are we going in the future? Well, this is Orion. This is what's going to take us to the moon and Mars. And the team that I work on now is the Dynetics Human Landing System team. So we are designing one of the landers that's going to be on the moon, and part of my role there is to work on the spacewalks for the moon and what are the unknowns. And that's part of this talk is, yes, we've been to the moon before, we've done spacewalks before, but what does that really mean? Where are we going, and why are spacewalks important? So right now for the International Space Station, when we do a spacewalk, or even for the space shuttle, we actually walk with our hands. So it's kind of funny, we actually don't do walking with our feet as much, but in this particular case, you'll see that we use our feet when we want to be held down at a workstation and we have to do a task. In the future, and if you look at the boots here on this astronaut, there's really no tread, there's no bottom. We're going to need a new type of spacesuit. And so I'm actually going to jump ahead real quick. This is the future spacesuit that NASA is working on. This is the actual walking spacesuit for the moon, and this is the launch and entry one. And so this is the one we're going to be looking at. And there's many things about this spacesuit that's a little different. But in particular, why do we do spacewalks? So just overall, we need to do spacewalks to assemble the different parts of the station. They are hard things to do. They're physically demanding, mentally demanding. They are dangerous, and so we do have a lot of protocols to make sure everyone's safe. If you talk about climbing or doing other exploration tasks or even scuba diving, those are other areas where you need to make sure you're safe. But they're really important if we want to live and explore other planets, other moons, and so it's something that we need to understand. And in particular, one of the areas I want to talk about just for a few minutes, and there's many, many areas we need to understand more on science and engineering, but is consumables. And consumables are, if you're like a scuba diver, it's the oxygen you're breathing or what's left, the air, the mixture of air you're breathing to be able to do that dive. Well, for a spacesuit, we have multiple consumables like that. So it's not just the air we're breathing. And in order to try to understand how long of a spacewalk we can do and what's going to happen, we have to pull a whole bunch of different things together. And this is where the science and the data comes into play. So right now we have metabolic rates, and this is just one example. And if you've ever done a profile in a gym, you've gone ahead and looked at what does that look like for the profile. So the gym might machine might say to you, hey, you're going to get a little tougher and a little easier in these phases. So the same thing, we look at the tasks we want to do on an EVA, and we look at that profile. And then the next thing we have to do is we have to combine the astronaut profile data. So right now you can see that the MBL is actually beginning to do spacewalks on the bottom of the pool. So we've transitioned from those hand spacewalks to now doing ones on the surface. And then we're going ahead and we will combine the actual individual astronaut profile data. So this is just an example of a run that I did. And so we get that data in from the astronauts and we're able to combine those two. So how hard are the tasks we're going to have to do, along with what does the profile data look like? And then as of right now, then someone sits on console and we help the astronauts by monitoring their real-time raw data that we're getting down. And we make a call on how long they have left based on what the workload might be. But that's not good enough. In the future, we really, really, really need to be able to do better, because we're going to be further away, so we won't have that continual communication with MCC, or it'll be delayed. And also we're going to have teams of astronauts. So it might not just be 2 people outside, but it could be 4 or more. And that makes it much more complicated, because if you've done diving with your buddy in scuba diving, you always have to be aware of who's the limiting factor in those consumables. And the more astronauts we have out doing spacewalks, right now we always have 2, but the more we have, the more complicated all this data gets. So in the future, what do we need? In the future, we're going to need predictive capabilities. And that's where the scientists are going to come into play. And we're going to take the data that we have, we're going to work with the engineers, we're going to work with doctors, and we're going to work with computer programmers to develop kind of a human-machine teaming type of feedback for the astronaut, hopefully. So as they're in their suits, they can talk to their computer and they'll get a better idea of how they're doing that day, how their team is doing, and how much more time do they have. Now that first one on that list, real data, I don't have real data right now. So until we go back to the moon, I'm not going to have real data again on the spacesuits we're using and on the astronauts that we're asking to do those spacewalks. So you know, as a scientist, real data is key, it's gold. So there is a lot of work we still need to do, and then we're going to have to do this whole cycle all over again when we go to Mars. So there's many, many challenges for scientists in the future, and there's many that we're working on right now, and I'm just excited to be part of that. If we have 1 more minute, guys, I'll just talk a little bit about kind of a closing comment, if that's all right.
Yep, we're good.
All right. So in closing, my kind of advice to anyone out there, go ahead and get a solid degree, a good university with a good degree in whatever you're interested in. For sure in STEM, you need to go to a solid university and get a good degree. I would say know your stuff. It's really important to know your job, to know the background, to know inside and out what your role is on that team. Also, if you need to change, that's okay. You want to do something you believe in. You want to do something you're passionate about. So don't worry about changing if you find that your interests change. It's gonna take work. STEM degrees in particular take work. Don't be afraid of hard work. And many, many little changes or choices are gonna be important and part of your life. You're gonna choose to study. You're gonna choose to maybe skip that party to go and get ready for that next test. But at the end of the day, the world only kind of acknowledges those big ones. So don't worry if those little choices seem hard, because you'll get to those big accomplishments in the end. And I just want to say that there is a place for you in this world. We need you. You're going to make a difference in whatever you want to do. So don't feel like you're hidden or you're not listened to. We do need you. And thank you to IFTHEN, AAAS, Oceaneering Dynetics. They allow me to do my job and talk to people like you all the time. And of course, thanks to NASA, especially for a lot of the amazing pictures I shared with you today. All right, that's the end. Sorry about going through that. I know it was really fast.
No, you did an amazing job of condensing real rocket science into a short period. So wow, there's a lot to think about there about careers in STEM and how you can get involved into this world. I have lots of questions for you. We have a couple minutes, so I'm going to jump right into it. One, I really want to know, I heard there was only 5% of commercial pilots are female. So I'm guessing you've been in a lot of rooms, in a lot of lecture halls, in a lot of job interviews where you're the only woman. Can you explain that a bit? What is that like, and how have you overcome that?
Well, I have to say that a lot of the teams and the coworkers and the other pilots that I fly with and work with, we're there because we're passionate about the thing we're there for, and that's kind of universal. So when you get in a room with people who are all really passionate about what they're doing, I don't want to say you don't see each other because there's diversity and there's challenges, but you get pulled in as a team because of that passion. That being said, I am a 99. I am part of an organization which is all women pilots, and I think it's important to support each other and be able to encourage each other. But in general, I think when you are passionate about something, it does make a difference.
Great. Yeah, we can really see your passion shine through. And I know there's probably a lot of young people out there who would love to have a career like yours. So thanks for sharing those tips. It's really helpful. And I have a technical question about the spacesuits. And since we are talking about women blazing trails, is there a difference between female spacesuits, male spacesuits when you're talking about consumables? Is there a difference?
There can be. So females tend to use less consumables just because of our body type. So, if you've ever dove with another scuba diver, like my husband, usually he's the limiting factor instead of me on the tank of air. However, there is a partnership in physical tasks. So, men can tend to be a little bit stronger in the suit. Although I will say that as a trainer, we encourage people to be trained work in the suit smarter, not harder. And so there are a lot of times where you can push your way through something, but that's not necessarily the better way, and you get tired easier. But yes, women tend to be a little bit better in consumables than men. Yeah.
Really interesting. And so would you go to space? Can you tell us, are you on a path to getting to space? Would you go if you had the chance? And who's going next?
Oh, I would absolutely go to space in a heartbeat. Yeah, for sure. I love exploring. I love physical, mental challenges. So I would definitely go to space if I had the opportunity to. The next people going, so right now we have not just Russian launches anymore, but we have SpaceX and we have Boeing coming up doing launches. So we have quite a few astronauts that are going to start launching to the space station. NASA's just announced the Artemis crew for the people in the office that are kind of focused on training for the moon. However, those names will probably expand. And NASA's in the process of bringing in new astronauts as well. And ESA, I think, just announced they're going to bring in new astronauts too. So if you're interested, those are ongoing processes that you can apply to and be prepared for.
Great. Well, where can we learn more about some of the work that you're doing?
NASA.gov, absolutely. You can also go to the Dynetics website as well. And then I work for a company called Oceaneering, and we're still hiring. We're going to be looking to continue to hire as we move closer to the moon. And so please check if you're interested. Check. We're always posting jobs.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We were able to make this call in under 30 minutes. So thank you so much. Anything else you'd like to share for young women or girls who would like to start a career in science? Any final last words?
I would just say, use the resources out there. You don't have to be limited by what you learn in school. Obviously do well in science and math, but there's lots of YouTube videos you can watch from education, NASA, universities, books you can read. My day I was reading a lot of books, but now there's so many resources out there. So learn as much as you can and just kind of soak it all in, because it all comes into play. Don't worry if you're watching something you don't understand all of it. As scientists, we have to watch and learn and hear words many times, concepts many times before we grasp them. So just kind of go out there and find your interest and learn about it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your passion with space exploration. And we'll stay tuned to hopefully see you one day on the moon.
Thank you.